It was Halloween of my senior year of college, and I was crammed in the back of a tiny car on a 2-hour drive from campus to Boston. It was shaping up to be a pretty uncomfortable ride. One, instead of wearing a Halloween costume, I was wearing my best interview clothes. And we all know that women's professional attire is not particularly comfortable. Two, I was in the car with two of my classmates, Mike and Sam, and we were driving to an interview for the same job. I think we were all very aware of the fact that there were more applicants in the car than there were positions to be filled. And finally, I wasn't even convinced I wanted the job. I've always told people that I learn by doing. But if I'm being honest, I think oftentimes I do because of a strong inner feeling of missing out. When I was a kid, I was nicknamed Nosy Rosie, and I insisted on staying up as late as possible and waking up as early as possible to make sure that I knew everything that was going on in the house. I think I still had that spirit in the fall of my senior year of college. I'd spent the last few weeks applying to my very first job, and the jobs I applied for were truly all over the place. But I learned by doing, right? So why would I cut off my options from the jump? So I was on my way to the first interview that came from this mix of applications. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking that I didn't really want the job. And when we got there, and after I interviewed for 6 hours, my mind was not changed. I didn't want the job. I knew it all along, but now I had wasted a whole day over it. At the end of this long day of interviewing, Mike, Sam, and I walked to the car. On the way, we noticed that it was overcast and unusually cold for an October day, but we didn't think much of it because we were pretty eager to get back to campus for our last Halloween of college. We learned, however, as we were traveling west down I-90, that those clouds were bringing in a snowstorm, and we were driving right into it. The snow out the window seemed to be on fast forward as the snow quickly changed from flurries to gigantic gobs coming out of the sky. I remember getting a growing pit in my stomach as the driving conditions seemed to get more and more dangerous, and the relief when we finally turned off the highway. We were slowly making our way down the now dark roads of western Massachusetts, and we were only a few miles away when we came to a full stop. Now, these are rural roads in western Massachusetts. Traffic doesn't really happen because of congestion. So we decided we were going to get out to see what was causing all the traffic. I bundled up, and as I stepped into the snow, I quickly regretted my life choices because those fancy flats that are so perfect for a job interview are not particularly snowproof. Regardless, we walked to the front of the line of cars to learn that the road was closed because there were 2 power lines that were straddling the road. It was then that I realized just how dark it was. These roads are always dark, but I think there's a special type of darkness that comes with power outages that just seems so much blacker. And worse, a police officer said that all the roads were snowed in, so it wasn't any use going anywhere that night. So we walked back to the car and came to the realization that we were not making it back to campus that night. The background noise to this realization was the crackling of branches and trees in the darkness. You see, that foot of snow that had fallen out of the sky was now weighing down all the branches and the leaves and the trees and bringing them all down. At one point, a tree even fell on top of the car in front of us. It was horrifying. And I remember being a little bit thankful that it was so dark outside because I was trying to keep it cool in front of my classmates. But if they had seen, they would have seen that I was crying in the back of the car. So we settled in for the night. We managed to move the car somewhere that it was clear of as many trees as possible. And Mike even managed to find a tent in the back of the car that we could use as a blanket. So the 3 of us cuddled in the back of Mike's car as we settled in for the night. So there I was, sleeping in a snowstorm in a car with a tent as a blanket in clothes that certainly weren't well suited to my situation with 2 guys I didn't know that well, all because I insisted on trying everything. Now, we did make it back to campus in the morning. We woke up to that snowy calm that comes after a big snowstorm and managed to drive the car through the tracks of a bigger car that had made its way through the road earlier in the morning. But in the end, I didn't want the job. I didn't get the job. And all I have is this story and a few lessons. 1, you always got to bring an extra pair of shoes around when you're going to be wearing your fancy flats. And two, yes, I do learn by doing, but that doesn't mean I need to do everything. And now, when a future opportunity presents itself, I always ask myself, is it worth sleeping in a car in a snowstorm over? Thank you.